Good evening, Mr. Scrivener. How are you this evening? I am.
It's never been a strength of mine. I don't have it down, Michelle.
You don't want an number of congressional reports.
Right.
We have live you say following words. It wants to be.
Must have been AI.
I've never seen this long meeting.
Really?
I'm still here. He just started.
We just started.
It's not here. You might not get away.
That's what. Yes.
He was going, he was trying to sit there and about to say. Yeah, starting that one. It's easier.
Thank you for telling me. It's always good to know where she was up.
I see what you're doing. Okay, you're not. You hear about this? But I could switch closer to the one. But now, I'm gonna. Don't you say anything that you can on screen. And that's okay. That's not. That's not good. Yeah, it's fine. You're on.
I mean, I'm not in any rush. I'm getting so. I'm sorry. Dang it. Gotta hit that inflation. Like Dr. Matt. I was gonna say. No, it's outside of bubble. Yeah, there's a. But it's hard. Started. And built the rest of it.
No, it doesn't work. I didn't choose well on the.
Get started. All right. Good evening, everybody. Yeah, it's not a couple of weeks.
those of you who don't know me, my name is Kevin Main, and I am, yep, I'm still the head of school. And it's great that you're here tonight. I want to welcome you to the third and last of our presentations in our education series. Tonight, Dr. Matthew Zakreski, aka Dr. Matt, is our speaker. A high-energy creative clinical psychologist, he utilizes an eclectic approach to meet the specific needs of his neurodivergent clients. That's a mouthful. He is proud to serve the gifted community as a consultant, a professor, an author, and a researcher. He's spoken over 200 times around the world about supporting neurodivergent kids. He's also a member of the Supporting the Emotional Needs of the Gifted, the National Association of the Gifted Children, the New Jersey Association for Gifted Children, and the Pennsylvania Association for Gifted Education. A little bit of a theme going on there. Dr. Matt graduated from Widener University Institute for Graduate Clinical Psychology in 2008. He's also the co-founder of the Neurodiversity Collective, but most importantly for us, he also spent time on our campus working with our students when he was doing his first clinical internship. So tonight, we're fortunate that he's returned to the Hill and is going to speak to all of us and present on the subject of emotional intensity in neurodivergent students. So it's my pleasure to welcome up to the front here, Dr. Matt.
Thank you, sir. Okay. It is so cool to be back and a little weird. You know, I was here from 2011 to 2012 as a 2-day-a-week practicum student. Then I worked for the summer camp, and then I worked for the summer camp again. And then I worked for the summer camp for the third year as the overnight supervisor when it was at Eastern. And that year I had one of the most seminal experiences of my clinical career, chasing one of our campers down Route 23 because he missed a putt in mini golf. Now you might think to yourself, what does that story have to do with what we're talking about tonight? A lot. So we'll dive right into there. But I have to tell you, this remains one of my favorite places. Diane Salter, the old director of psychological services here, was a huge mentor to me. I miss her very much. And so I'm going to dedicate what we're doing tonight to her, because I would not be here without her. And I honestly probably wouldn't have survived my first year without her. She famously said to me, she's like, "You're not as good as you think you are, but you're not bad either." Thank you. Okay. So. Anyway, all right, so what are we doing tonight? First thing we're going to do, we're going to learn how to better manage emotional intensity. In psychology, we refer to emotions for what we call the big three: frequency, intensity, and duration. So the idea is not to not have feelings. It's that fewer of them, less intensely, less often. Second thing we're going to do is we're going to understand where our emotions come from. I found everything I do in neuroscience and neuropsychology. Part of the reason this is important for neurodiverse kids is that if we help them understand that it's about their brains, their different brains, it makes the problem not I'm screwed up, it's I have a different brain. And then third, we're going to develop the language to communicate about emotional intelligence. I also should note that I did not say hi to the ghost. I don't know how many of you guys know about the ghost. The lights just flickered and I saw it. So I was working here late one last night and I swear to God I was not alone this time. That's the story I've heard every day. All right, what we're not doing is teaching our kids not to have feelings. Yes, it would be great if we weren't anxious or depressed or angry. That would be, our lives would be a lot easier. But that's not the point. Life is to be met with all of its feelings. And we're not giving up on our abilities to help kids. Whether those kids are your students, your clients, your own children, or your nieces, nephews, friends from down the street, whatever it is, this work is really hard, which means we have to work really hard. Hopefully, I'm going to teach you how to work smart too. All right. So, like I said, I'm a brain nerd. Whole bunch of brain stuff here. You guys are going to get these slides. We're not going to go through every point in exquisite detail, but I'm going to point out probably the most important thing here, which is the limbic system. The limbic system is a series of interconnected structures in the brain. So when we have a feeling, that's the part of the brain that lights up, that does its job. So those big feelings are going to drive big behaviors. We have a system that's meant to keep us alive, and that system senses emotion, well, senses threat, gives us emotion, and that emotion makes behaviors happen. So if you're sitting there and be like, why is my child shaking with fear just because a dog walked by? That dog, their child's limbic system is saying that dog is a threat and giving us signals to say, like, you either going to fight, you're going to flight, or you're going to freeze. So that system is at the foundation of everything we do. And neurodivergent brains, because of the way they develop, have more interconnections. So in a very famous study, they asked kids gifted kids, autistic kids, and neurotypical kids to name all 50 US state capitals while hooked up to a brain machine. The neurotypical kids, there's a certain amount of anxiety, right? Because it's a demand task. The kids who are autistic and the kids who are gifted, their whole brains lit up. In different patterns, but the idea is the more neurodivergent you are, because there are more connections, the feeling is a whole brain feeling. It's not just, oh, someone's asking me to do things. I feel a little anxious. It's my whole brain is saying, whoa. That's going to be really important for what we talk about tonight. So one very concrete way to think about this, and my friends on Zoom, you can do this too. Everybody do me a favor and give me a thumbs up. I appreciate the positive reinforcement. That's the only reason. No, I'm just kidding. Take a look at your thumbnail. Thumbnail is the size of your amygdala. The amygdala is the source of fight or flight emotions in your brain, anger and fear. Now, in the neurodivergent brain, go ahead, clap your other hand together. In the neurodivergent brain, it can be up to twice as large. So in kids who are dyslexic, kids with nonverbal learning disorder, kids who are autistic, kids who are gifted, the kids with ADHD, their amygdala can be up to twice as large. Now, it's still not a big thing, but when you take something and double it, you're just increasing the emotional potential, right? So the kids literally have bigger sources of feelings, and thus, we're going to see that show up more and more. There's a whole bunch of stuff about how the brain, where all the feelings start, impact our entire body. Now, one of the things, by the time a kid gets to me, they've probably done a fair amount of therapy work. Very few people start with me in therapy. And they'll talk like, yeah, I get feelings like, oh, my eyebrows go down, that's how I'm mad. And I stick out my tongue when I'm disgusted. Bleh. Right? It's like, yes, we're very good. But feelings are a whole body experience, right? From the top of your head, from the tips of your toes. We're going to unpack that a little bit later. But internally, it's these two competing systems, the sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system. Sympathetic nervous system, that's fight or flight. So if a bear wanders by the backyard, we're all going to be a little scared. Everybody's going to get ready to fight the bear, which I would not recommend, or run away from the bear, which is a better idea. Once that feeling's over, the secondary system kicks in, the parasympathetic nervous system. You might think about it parasympathetic like parachute. It slows us down. So sympathetic is fight or flight, parasympathetic is rest and digest. It's going to calm our bodies down. Now it's going to kick in on its own eventually, but there are things we can do to speed up that process to bring us back to baseline. Because the key is not to be happy. Right? And I think this is really important for our kids to understand. The goal is not to be happy. The goal is to be neutral. The goal is to be at rest. The parasympathetic nervous system, its job is to bring us back to rest, bring us back to baseline. It doesn't make us happy because as far as the body is concerned, any feeling is a departure from the norm. Any departure puts stress on the system, right? If you've ever been, I'm going to use the word victim, of a surprise party, I hate surprise parties, right? That excitement and surprise is dysregulating to our system, right? And you think about our kids, the kids that go to Hilltop, the hardest day I ever had here was the day we had a 2-hour snow delay. And snow, that's great, exciting. the kids were off the wall. I remember I was sitting in my office, which is down in the far corner, and a kid ran by with a chair over their head. And it was one of those things like Scooby-Doo, it's like. I should find out why that's happening. Surprisingly, not for good reasons. So we want to return to baseline, and that's important for our kids to understand. Once the limbic system does its job, it sends all its emotional energy to the prefrontal cortex, front part of our brain right here. Now, the prefrontal cortex has a very important job that it is wildly understaffed to do. And so the prefrontal cortex is the source of executive functioning skills. So that means time management, task initiation, task completion, task switching, organization, self-regulation, sustaining attention, all these wonderful things that are really necessary to survive in the world. And the prefrontal cortex is negatively impacted in basically every different neurodivergence. Some obvious, like attention deficit disorder, ADHD, right? That is a disorder of the prefrontal cortex. It develops slower. But we see it negatively impacted in autism, dyslexia, dysgraphia, apraxia, giftedness. So really, everybody under the neurodivergent umbrella has a prefrontal cortex that grows up more slowly. And where this is going to show up for us is that it's overwhelmed, it has to do a lot of work, and in neurotypical kids, the prefrontal cortex fully grows up somewhere between 20 and 24, because we're fully developed. So for many of us, that may explain what we did in college. Thank you for laughing at my terrible joke. For neurodivergent kids, especially quite exceptional kids, the prefrontal cortex isn't going to fully grow up to somewhere around 32. So it's another decade. Right now, it's not an on or off switch, right? It's a dimmer switch. It grows up, but it's going to grow up more slowly. And it means we're more likely to make mistakes. What that ends up looking like is 476 on a Tuesday afternoon. Yes, that joke is still relevant. I can only assume. I just gave this talk at a school in Buffalo, and I was like, I-90 after a Bills game? They're like, you guys, there you go. Color people. You see all these trucks, right? Look at this bottleneck. All this information is whipping around our kids' brains. And this poor prefrontal cortex, it has to sort it all out and make sure we make the right decisions. And it's really hard to do. It's hard for anybody's brain to do. And small world. But what ends up happening, all this stuff comes to the front of me. It makes mistakes. When we make mistakes, we get upset. When we get upset, we make more mistakes, right? It becomes what we call the struggle switch, right? Because when you have a feeling, you get a feeling about your feeling, and you have a feeling about a feeling about a feeling, and a feeling that you have a feeling about a feeling about a feeling, that's when you have a meltdown, right? This poor prefrontal cortex is trying to do all this stuff, and it's not equipped to do the job. The cool thing about the prefrontal cortex is that it's like a muscle. So the more we work it, the stronger it gets. We can overcome some of that asynchrony and help our kids do better and make better choices. So what does all this mean? You can conceptualize the human brain as two different parts. It's going to be a little overly simplistic, but stick with me. The top part of our brain is where our creativity and coping strategies and thought process, that social skills, often the top part of our brain. You could call it the wizard brain. And it sits on top of the back part of your brain, whose job is to keep us alive. Wizard brain sits on top of the lizard brain. Remember we talked about that sympathetic nervous system, and when we get scared, our whole body responds. That's when our wizard brain pops off. It's offline. Because the brain doesn't care if you know that every single Pokemon, if there's a bear in the room. And of course, our kids are like, bear Pokemon, Ursulina, very good. Yes, it's like good. Also, run, right? So when we're upset, the thinking brain pops off. The problem is that's where all of our coping skills are, in that good thinking part of our brain. So we need to help our kids put that clap back on, like this gift shows. Now, this is important because when our kids are upset, what's the first thing we do as caring adults? Kid comes up to you, they're upset. Calm down. Has that ever worked for anybody, Kev?
Never.
Never in the history of anything, right? What else do we do? We try to talk to them. We ask them, Merritt, what's wrong? Tell me what happened. It doesn't sound like it, but I'm giving you demands right now, and your system is melting down. And you're gonna hit me with a hammer, and I don't know that you even got that hammer. You only did hit with a chair. So we need to help our kids calm down so they can answer these questions, so we can bring the top part of the brain back online. If you've ever been with your kid and they're having a really tough time, if you look at their eyes are they're sort of glazed over, right? It's because they're not in touch with that part of the brain. And parents think it's like, oh, does that mean my kid is psychotic? It's the opposite. Your brain's trying so hard to keep you alive that it's saying, it doesn't matter that you draw awesome anime pictures. It doesn't matter that you can name every single Beach Boys album. It doesn't matter that your favorite color is purple, because right now I think you're about to die. And that's what our brain is trying to do. The system is overly sensitive for the problems we face, but we can't change that. All we can do is understand it. So, like we were just talking about, no one has ever calmed down, being told to calm down. So to do this, we need to be as okay as possible before we intervene. Co-regulation is the name of the game. So like I said, I had to once chase a student down Route 23. And it's the sort of thing, after I did chase him down, the entire time thinking, I'm so glad I changed out of flip-flops. Because I almost wore flip-flops to the mini college. I changed into shoes at the last minute. Thank goodness, I don't think I would have caught it. And I finally catch him, and we're both panting. It's the middle of summer. And he's like, what? I was like, are you okay? He's like, yeah. Are you okay? I was like, no, I'm serious. He's like, what? Are you mad at me? So I was like, hey, I'm not your therapist, I'm a counselor. Second, I'm allowed to be angry at you right now because you just put me and you in danger. And I was watching him start to crumble in real time. I was like, I'm going to stop you because I still love you, buddy. I'm still going to support you. I'm still here for you. It is not my job to be calm in this moment. It is my job to feel my feelings and not let them overwhelm me for being there with my kid. That's what co-regulation is all about. Because the idea here is if we try to calm ourselves down, and you're still going to see this in parenting books and on webinars, and very famous psychologists be like, you need to be calm, just send it to your child. And I don't think that's realistic. Right? So if your kid has been banging on your bedroom door for 45 minutes, and you got that like sensory thing, it's like, oh, okay. Is it your name? Dan. Didn't know there was going to be a quiz. So, Dan, you're sort of pounding on your bedroom door for 45 minutes. How did that make you feel? A little crazy, right? So you open the door and you see this thing just pumping and beeping, right? You're like, oh, what, you mad? What would you say? Who's mad? Me? Yeah. Yes. Yeah, very good. Hey, just you, oh, what, you're mad at me? You hate me? Is being mad at you mean that you hate me? No, not at all. We are human beings. And this is such an important thing because our kids are going to stress us out. They're going to scare us. They're going to piss us off, right? It's vital that we feel those feelings because if we don't feel them, we're spending a lot of mental energy pushing them away. I'm fine. Look how fine I am. I'm totally fine. I'm totally fine. Why are your eyes goes, right? I have a 5-year-old and a 3-year-old. Sometimes I'm like, and my wife will come in and, she'll be like, are you okay? I'm like, and I still have that instinct to be like, I'm fine. But I'm not. So when, honestly, I can use a break. We had a dry macaroni fight this morning. Turned my head for 2 minutes. I don't even know where they got the macaroni. Dry macaroni fight. So I was a little upset about that. And I'm allowed to be. That's the key thing. That's how we co-regulate. The secret here is our bodies and brains want to return to homeostasis. They want to calm down because it's less stressful. The way we do that is we say our feeling out loud. Now, you don't need to shout it, though certainly if you want to. You can whisper it to yourself. You can write it down. As long as your brain says, I'm feeling word here. Now, I'm going to tell you an embarrassing story about me. because it's relevant to this. So the very first time I gave a presentation, right, I've given almost 300 now. And the very first one though, was at Supporting the Emotional Needs of the Gifted conference in Chicago in 2017. And my wife and I, we lived in Havertown at the time, got up, took a cab to the airport, got on the 7 a.m. flight from Philly to Chicago, flew from Philly to Chicago, got on a cab, took the cab to the hotel. It is now 1 p.m. Chicago time, which is 2 p.m. Philly time. And all I've had to eat so far today is half a bagel and a cup of coffee. Anybody else in this room get hangry? Right? Neurodivergent people, by the way, are much more likely to get hangry because our brains use glucose more efficiently. Just saying. So it may explain a few things. So we get to our hotel room, and it's one of those hotel rooms that you got to put your hotel key in the slot by the light switch for the light switch door. You ever been to one of those? I had not. So all I want to do is watch 10 minutes of Sports Center while my wife freshes up and we're gonna go get a sandwich. I can't make the lights work or the TV turn on. And I was losing my mind. So my wife was out of the bathroom like a lion in a cage, right? She's like, hey, what's this? I was like, she'd tell me how to do it. I was like, what? Just tell me how to do it. I'm pissed. Oh, like as soon as I said it, felt a wave come over me. I needed to own the feeling. I was like, I want to be pissed off. I would much rather be watching the Sports Center and thinking about the sandwich I was going to eat. But I was angry. Once I said it, I told my parasympathetic nervous system, hey, you're pissed off. This is what you do to calm down when you're pissed off. I'm going to release those neurotransmitters to help you calm down faster. You have to say the feeling. And our kids definitely don't want to say those feelings because there's a vulnerability there, right? Nobody wants to be anxious about, are they going to get asked to prom? Nobody wants to be depressed because they didn't make the cast of the play. Nobody wants to be angry for reasons they don't really even understand. But if we say, hey, how are you feeling? Tell me about your feelings. We're going to kick in that parasympathetic nervous system. And the way this is really helpful for our kids, our neurodivergent kiddos, is they like concrete things. Right? Feelings are an abstract concept, right? But this is science. We get neuroscience, right? Neuroscience is a concrete thing. So I will tell my clients, I'm trying to activate your parasympathetic nervous system right now. I'm trying to deregulate your amygdala. And they're like, well, those are brain things. I get that. That's really helpful. Now, a couple of months ago, I was giving a talk to a very astute parent and said, Dr. Mann, hold on a second. You've asked us to do two things that don't make sense. You've asked us to get the kids to say the feeling and not ask them questions. How do you do both of those things? And I went like this. Security. So let me show you how this stuff works. So we are in a place of calm. Something triggers us. Doesn't matter what it is. It could be anything. There is an agitation phase. That's where we want to intervene. If we can catch a kid when they're agitated, that's when we can head this off the path. That's when we're going to use the name your feeling. Oh, hey, look, I just saw what's your name? So I just saw Sue's body language change. Sue, what's going on? Something just happened. Tell me how you're feeling. And if I do it right, Sue's like, oh, I like what you just said. It bothered me. Cool, we can talk about it. Sue re-regulates. We don't escalate. We're not always going to catch it though, because our kids escalate quickly. And most of the time, we've got some number of other children or humans around us, and we can't just pay only attention to Sue. So once our kids accelerate and hit this peak, listen, brain's offline. The cap has popped off. We gotta wait that out. That's why this is storm. That's why this talk is called riding out the storm. Because sometimes you get out in front of it, that's great. Sometimes you gotta wait for it to pass. They're both fine. Because once they're on this de-escalation thing, we can make this happen faster by activating that parasympathetic nervous system. So if we catch it before, great. But it's not like, a time bomb, the bomb goes up, the children's hospital blows up, and that's very sad. It's, okay, a thing happened. We're either going to do it before or after, but either way, we're going to do it. So, apparently that's an animation. That was fun. So here's my rule. A rule that actually was developed here, walking with, I don't know, Probably, I'm not hearing her, I probably could say her name, but I don't think I should. Michelle and I, yes, we'll call this kid Adam, not his real name. But he was really upset about something that happened in gym. And his peers were walking by as he and I were walking out. Jim, it doesn't matter, you're upset, it's just kickball. It's just kickball, it doesn't even matter. I was like, hey guys, he can feel however he wants about whatever he wants. Well, that was pretty good. But it's what he does with those feelings that matter. Oh, I'm pretty good at this, you know? But it's true, it's true. Anybody else in this room afraid of clowns? What's your name?
Yeah.
Mia? You and Mia, right? Terrifying, right? They're the worst. Absolutely the worst. So me and Mia are afraid of clowns. We are allowed to be afraid of clowns. I'm not allowed to take Sue and throw her in front of the clown so I can escape. That would not be cool of me to do. So I'm allowed to be upset, scared, angry, happy, excited, aroused, whatever the thing might be. This is what I do with those feelings that matter. This is really important because our kids are going to get really stuck on the, what, you're telling me I can't have feelings? You're telling me that I can't be sad, that I didn't make this awkward thing? No one's saying that. No one's saying you can't be sad. What I'm saying is you can't punch your brother because of it. What I'm saying is that you can't run away from home because of it, right? So stick with me and talk about these feelings, and we'll come up with a solution that works for everybody. So the standard is not in what you feel or how you feel it. The standard is what you do with that feeling on the back end. That's where we can intervene with our kids. So let's set some expectations. We're never going to get these feelings to zero. Remember, frequency, intensity, and duration. Those numbers never get to zero, but we can make them smaller, and that's good. The presence of a feeling or a meltdown doesn't mean you failed or your kid failed. Your kid could have had 3 great weeks of school in a row, no behavioral referrals, not against the office, no fist fights. That's awesome. And then on day 22, they walk in the first period and they punch Bobby in the face. And you're going to have this instinct as a parent that's going to go, oh, all the progress has been lost. No, they still making just 21 days. Right? It doesn't mean that the progress is gone. It means that we need to think about it in a different way. Progress is not linear, nor is it constant, nor is it forever. I've given this particular talk over 60 times. And you think every time I give this talk, I would get a little better at giving this talk. And I watch all the films I have of myself. I'm like a quarterback, right? I'm like Jalen Hurts. Right? We're in Philly, references, and I wouldn't make it. Giants one, the worst quarterback in the league. So, but the idea here is that, like, sometimes I get this talk and I'm like, oh man, I crushed it. And then, like, 2 iterations after that, I'm like, oh, that day. This progress is not linear, it is not consistent, nor is it forever. And that's an important expectation to set for our kids. Well, I was in therapy for 3 years. How am I not better at this? You are better at this. You're just not better at this all the time. The impact of environment is real. Places, crowds, you need to pay attention to that. In my humble opinion, it's the single biggest variable that we don't pay attention to in kids, especially neurodivergent kids. We want to focus on skills, not telling kids not to have feelings. Here's how to self-regulate. Praise is way more powerful than punishment. General rule of thumb, praise the behavior you want to see. So it doesn't matter if a kid's been hell on wheels for 29 minutes. If in the 30th minute they got it together and they paid attention, hey, I really like how you got it together. Because a lot of times when we say to kids, it's like, well, it's good at the end, but the rest of it sucked. Praise the behavior you want to see. And if you can't see it, you praise the behavior you wish you could see. It's like, I see how hard you're trying to do this. You know, that tells the kid's brain, that's what we want to see from them. That's reinforcing it. That's really powerful. This is really, really hard. I spent 5 years in graduate school for this, and it still kicks my butt on a daily basis. And it's up to us, the parents, the teachers, the staff, the mental health professionals, to help our kids regulate their emotions. We have grown-up brains, they don't. One of the things we often forget when intervening with kids is that they're kids. Because our kids, because of their chewy braids, because of their neurodivergence, you'll sit there and you get sucked into the fact that your 9-year-old can somehow speak like a college student sometimes, and you're like, wow, I would treat you like a mature adult. And then they're like, oh yeah? And you're like, how are you the same child? It's because they're kids. I spent 20 minutes on a phone call this afternoon trying to explain to a mom that just because their kid is 9 doesn't mean he's always going to clean his room. And she said, but he's capable of, oh yeah, he's capable of it. He can physically put the things in the thing, but he's also 9 and would much rather play with Nerf guns. And there's nothing wrong with that. We have to see our kids in context. Beneath every behavior, there's a feeling. Beneath every feeling, there is a need. And when we focus on the need, not the behavior, that's how we make meaningful change. So, one of the things I often say is that when you find out why a kid is acting out, 99 times out of 100, it's not going to piss you off. It's going to break your heart. So many years ago, I used to work at the Grayson School, formerly of Broomall, now right down the road. And I had a kiddo, kiddo that I had a great relationship with. And when time to go out to recess, he would not go outside. I'm like, dude, what's this all about? He's like, I don't know, I'm going outside. We are arguing back and forth. We spent 30 minutes in the cafeteria. And I'm like, what is going on here? And I was like, dude, you've got to tell me what's going on. I don't want to. Come on, let me help you. Finally, he's like, you wouldn't get it. Try me. And he's like, and he stopped. He's like, Dr. Matt, my coat's from Goodwill. Think about the kind of kid who can afford to go to Grayson. And there's nothing against those kids, right? But they've got all the brand new ski jackets with the ski tags on them, right? They've got the cool hats, they've got the North Faces. This kid's coat was from Goodwill. He was on 90% tuition. Right? It's nobody's fault, but he was mortified. So he didn't want to go outside and have to wear his coat because then everyone would see his coat. Once I figured that out, I went from ready to throw him through a plate glass window to like, get in here, buddy. I gave him a big hug. I was like, I got a solution. I gave him my coat. I don't care. So he got to go out wearing Dr. Matt's coat. And he was like, well, everyone's like, what is Dr. Matt's coat? I don't know, maybe I'm just that awesome. Right? And then we talked to his parents about how important it was for him to have a nicer looking coat. And they found one at Ross, I think it was Ross, that, you know, smoothed that problem over. But if I had focused on his behavior, the fact he was being disrespectful and defiant, I would still be in that cafeteria, right, yelling at him. You know, like little cartoons with like the calendar pages flip and flip and flip and flip, would have been like that kind of situation. All right, so as we get into the intervention part of our evening, let me introduce our co-pilot. Because if there was a more neurodivergent child than Calvin, I don't know. People were like, Bart Simpson's gifted. I was like, Bart Simpson's gifted, Calvin is definitely gifted. But he's also totally 2E, and we're gonna unpack that. So, identifying feelings. So, becoming more aware of our feelings is a great way to get more control over them. And we talked about how they start in our head and they impact our entire body. A great way to get kids to understand that is to go through their feelings body part by body part by body part. I try very hard not to get angry, but I know when I am because this muscle in my jaw tenses. So I'm mad, not because my fists are clenched, not because I blocked my knees, not because my eyebrows went down, because this muscle. And when I feel this thing flare, I go, oh, I'm mad. And then that's not good or bad, but it's a cue. So wait for me to say, hold on a second, I probably need to take a break. Right? Some kids, when they're about to have an anxiety attack, they feel like their stomachs are rumble. Those are cues. Anything we can do. Oh, it's not moving, but that's fine. Hold on. Okay. There we go. Thank you, sir. Yeah, because we think about that escalation cycle. Right? If we catch it here through those behavioral or body cues, we might be able to stop it from hitting that peak. A whole lot of rigmarole for that. So walk through, what does your eyebrows, forehead, ears, nose, mouth, chin, neck, shoulders, hands, chest, legs, feet look like when you're having kids like feet? I'm like, oh yeah. You ever watch an ADHD kid in class? It's like Bob Fosse, you know? You're not a theater kid, that joke was hilarious. And then you can prime them early on. You can say, you look blank to me because of what I'm seeing. Now, most of the time, we only talk to kids about feelings that are uncomfortable or unpleasant. They're mad, they're sad, they're scared, right? If you're watching their favorite YouTube video, they're like, hey, you look really happy. I am. I can tell you're happy because of this, and this. You're cueing those behaviors, right? You're cueing them to see, this is how I can tell those things, but doing it in a safe way, right? One of the moms I work with, she was testing, she was having a lot of trouble getting off the ground. And she's like, wait. There's nothing my kid loves more in this world than Rita's. She's like, hey, you want to go to Rita's? And she was like, and she took a picture of it. And she's like, this is your body excited. Your eyebrows got big, your eyes got really big, your chest is out, your arms are back. So, and now he goes many years later, he'll go, hey mom, I'm excited. And they she's made a whole series of his emojis that they use as like a shorthand in their family. Now, is that strategy for everybody? Not necessarily, but it's a way to make it tangible, right? Outbursts. Neurodivergent kids are really good at what we call replacement language. Trying to communicate a feeling by not saying the feeling. Does anybody here have any siblings? Do you have siblings? Older or younger, how many? One younger sister. Now, cone of secrecy. Have you ever said to your younger sister, I'll kill you?
No.
Never, not once, right? No, never, right? I have younger sisters, and I'm pretty sure I threatened to murder them on the regular growing up. And do you think I murdered my sisters? You would hope not, right? Because I'm now a psychologist talking about how to help kids. That would be weird. That's replacement language. I was mad at them because they knew I loved my baseball cards, and they would come and they'd be pulling them all over the place, and my little OCD brain would be like, no. So I'm like, I'll kill you guys. Replacement language. I'm mad. I'm expressing my feeling with words without saying exactly how I feel. So ways that replacement language shows up is I'm bored. Often replacement language for this is too hard for me, or it's too easy for me. I'll kill you. We'll unpack that one. All my friends hate me. Usually say I feel embarrassed, I feel alone. I either did a bad thing or was accused of doing a bad thing, and I'm catastrophizing it. School's stupid. In my line of work, that's usually school's actually holding them accountable. It's a very different thing. One of the things that Hilltop has always been good at. Validate first, because feelings can't be wrong. So, because the thing is, if your kid comes up to you and says, all my friends hate me, our instinct as adults is like, no, they don't. But not just argue with your feelings. I argue with your way of seeing the world. Right? Like when you said you hadn't said that you killed your sister, I tried really hard not to be like, sure you did. Because you know your life story a lot better than I do, right? Yeah. I've known you for less than an hour. Right? It's not my job, it's not our job to argue with kids. We might feel like we know more, and maybe sometimes we do, but a feeling can't be wrong. It feels like Miss Trusty hates me. Let's talk about that. I know Miss Trusty very well. I know she only hates some kids. I mean, very. We don't want to jump into problem solving. We're going to unpack that a little bit more. But the idea here is feelings can't be wrong, right? So don't argue with them. Be curious about them. Try and learn more. Outbursts and opportunity for verbal aggression. This is where we get into the core parenting or therapeutic context of content versus process. So I'm going to tell you guys a story. I used to do a lot of consulting over at AM Academy in Conchi. Lovely place, great team over there. And one of my kids, I was doing an observation, and he was having a day. So I walked out to the playing field, and he's sitting there in the corner with like cartoon smoke coming out of his ears. I'm like, "Hey, buddy," and he looks at me, he's like, "Dr. Matt, if you come any closer, I'm gonna chop you up with a rusty hatchet, throw you in the river so beavers eat your corpse." The kind of sentence you remember, right? Chop you up with a rusty hatchet and throw you in the river so beavers eat your corpse. Now, if I had taken those words seriously, I would have called 911, right? Because this child is threatening to murder me, right? Now, fun fact about this kiddo, he is 6. He probably weighs about 40 pounds soaking wet. I mean, I don't know if I could take him, but I'm gonna bet on me in that fight. But I knew that's not what he meant. I knew that he was really angry. And when I paid attention to those feelings, I was like, I feel angry, sure. I feel overwhelmed, makes sense. I also feel embarrassed. That was an interesting feeling. Tell me about the embarrassment. He was like, "You wouldn't get it." Give me a try. Sucks when you get picked last for kickball. It hurt him. And you might say, "Oh, he overreacted." I'm gonna say this. I don't think overreacting exists. Your reactions are your reactions. They might be over what we would expect. But for him, getting picked last in kickball was a major triggering thing. He was very, very angry. And frankly, I'd rather him be that angry at me than one of his peers. But the feedback for him was, "Hey, dude, I get it. I've made a relationship with you. I understand this. But if the wrong adult heard that, we're gonna have a very different conversation." So this is why you can say, "I need a minute," or "leave me alone," or try and say the feeling you're feeling, right? But the idea here is like, if an adult took those things seriously, they would have called the police. And now I have a very different problem. So as such, verbal aggression can be fairly high stakes in terms of intervening. Context is key. Because one of the things that kids will do is like, "Oh, I'm gonna kill you on the tennis court later." If we take that seriously, we're intervening in a way that kids just sort of talk to each other. It's hard to understand the context as adults. This is where we check in, we're curious rather than combative. Let's get away from the person situation if we can. Have that safe person. Right? Who that safe person could be a mental health professional, a favorite teacher, the headmaster. Kevin's like, "No." One of the kids I work with out in Chester County, his safe person's the janitor. He loves the janitor. So when he's having something, he goes and just follows the janitor around school, they do rounds together. We actually got the superintendent to count that as a gym credit for him. One of my better negotiations, if I do say so myself. He was like, "Oh yeah, he's working his butt off. That's a gym credit." I was like, "Let's go." Then we get into, especially for our older kids. So we're talking like 7 through 13 grade. Any kid with a phone or a social media account. If you are mad, lock your phone in the drawer. Put your phone in the car and go inside. Or put your phone inside and go in your car. The idea here is that context is everything when we're feeling a feeling. I thought I was going to get the lead in the play, but I didn't get the lead in the play, and I am furious about it. But the problem is that the feeling is going to burn very hot, but we're going to forget the context very quickly. And all we're going to feel is the feeling. So if you jump on Twitter and you're like, "The only reason I didn't get the lead in the play is because Josie is sleeping with Mr. Mitchell." Tweet. And that's out there forever. All it takes is one person to screenshot it. All it takes is one person to share it. And then we're having a whole bunch of meetings. Right? So it's like, be angry, write a letter, do some art. Even do the thing where you just pull up a blank Word document and just spam out all the anger inside you. All those things are fine. But it really is one of those things like you gotta put your phone away. Because the feeling is burned quickly, and the context goes away, but the words last forever. And so when I say that to my teen clients, I'm like, listen, I'm not saying don't be mad. I'm not saying don't carry your phone around. I'm just saying that when that happens, stay far away from social media or even in public. Big thing, and it's a thing we did very well at the camp, is we did a really good job of setting expectations before we go into the public. And this is really key. It's what I like to call the 5-minute minivan conversation. You pull up somewhere, you turn around, you're like, okay, let me talk about what we're gonna do. We're gonna go into Target. Target's probably got a lot of people. We need to buy shirts, applesauce, and markers. Why did I pick those 3 things? I have no idea. We're gonna be there. We're gonna buy 5-10 minutes, right? What tools do we have at our disposal? You've got your phone, you've got a yo-yo, and we've got the paperback book we keep in the car. I'm telling you guys, car books will save your life. Book tools you have, then we go into the thing. Now, we cannot prepare for every eventuality, right? If you walk into Target and the kid you have a crush on is in Target with the person they are dating that you didn't know about it, no one could have anticipated that, right? And that's why it's key to have a code word. Give your kids something to be able to say on the slide that's like, hey, about to lose it? Like, hey, mom, can we go get a Cinnabon? Meaningful glare, right? It's like, yes, Cinnabons are delicious. I must go. Right? But it's the sort of thing. In fact, yeah, we got time. All right, I'm gonna tell you one of my all-time favorite Hilltop stories. So I worked at the summer camp, the second year I worked at the summer camp. We took the kids to the Franklin Institute, and the kids were really anxious to go downtown, right? And we're going to Franklin Institute, it's a museum, it's a safe part of the city, things should be fine, right? And we're in, was it Ekins Oval? I think right across the street. And we're having a picnic lunch under a tree. Now, if you've never been to the Oval, there's lots of trees. I just picked one randomly. And the kids kept saying, we're really worried. What if something happens? And I'm like, guys, we've prepared for every eventuality. Don't worry about it. I was wrong. Because as we're sitting there under the tree eating our delicious Wawa hoagies, I happened to look up. And there was a 9-foot boa constrictor in the tree above us. Now, of all the trees in Philadelphia, we picked the one with the 9-foot boa constrictor with my very anxious to eat kids sitting under the tree. I was like, God, what have I done? Like, I'm so sorry. And then this guy goes, oh yeah, that's my snake up there. I took him for a walk. I'm like, would you take the snake down from there, please, sir? And he reaches up and he takes the snake down. Of course, as he does so, the kids see the snake and then they scatter to the winds. And I have to go chase them all down. So the thing, you can never prepare for every eventuality. But we talked about what happens if you get separated, what happens if there's a fire alarm, what happens if there's a police action. We covered as much as we could. But because we built that relationship and we gave them the tools, one of the kids' code word for me was Frappuccino. I don't know why he chose that. So he's running out. Yeah, we get it. We understand there is an emergency. We think about our kids' triggers. We're trying to minimize them as best we can. Noise canceling headphones or God skip to the universe. Don't panic. There was a 9-foot snake in the tree. I tried not to panic. It was moderately successful at that. It's important to think about our needs versus our kids' needs. If it's a Saturday and you take your kiddo in the car and you gotta go to Target, Home Depot, and the grocery store. And you do 5-minute minivan conversation between Target and Home Depot, and things are going well. But then you get into the grocery store and your kid's like starting to vibrate. Go home. You're like, well, but it's like, no, listen, lose the battle to win the war. And you're like, well, I really need to go to the grocery store, then go to the grocery store first next time. But then here's take an hour, reset, go to a McDonald's or Wendy's, go to Qdoba, I don't care. Reset, refill the tank, and then try again. Right? It is always better to leave 5 minutes too early than 5 minutes too late. And then, if you've never carried your kid at a target like a football running back, even a parent. I think it's a little bit less relevant for you. I don't know if you did that when they were younger, but I'll tell you this, I'm a child psychologist, I'm an international expert, and I have yanked both of my kids out of Target like I'm stealing loaves of bread, right? It happens. There's only so much you can do, right? But they did this amazing study at the University of Minnesota. They took kids to the Mall of America, and they had moms in there, and they had their kids melt down. And then the psychological researchers surveyed the people. And so the mom and the kid were actors, right? They were part of the study, but the people were not. So it's like, hey, how did you feel about that parent? 92% of the adults met that adult with compassion. Oh my gosh, it seems like their kid was having a really tough day. Mom tried her best. That kid seemed like it was really tough. Only 8% of people were like, oh, parenting today is blah, 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 blah. Right? So if you ever read a YouTube comment section, you're going to think the whole world's out to get it. But in the real world, most parents, most adults get it and would support you. So if you're sitting there, it feels higher when you're in public. If you go to a Phillies game and your kid's freaking out and you're embarrassed, you're motivated, everyone's judging me. Hey, they're probably not even seeing you. And if they are seeing you, they're seeing you with compassion. It's really important to try and remember. Disappointment. We tend to rush to fix the problem, which can minimize kids' pain. There's also this sort of okay boomer moment, like if your kid says, I get asked to prom, and you also didn't get asked to prom back in the day, you can ask to share that story. But I was doing a family therapy session the other day, and this kid was like, I used to have 30,000 followers on TikTok, and now I'm down to 17,000 followers on TikTok. And I was like, oh yes, I remember when I lost my paper route. I was like, shut up. Nope, it is the wrong medium. So we probably don't understand this is really different being a kid now than it was when we were kids. And as well, the second youngest person in the room, maybe, I'm not sure. I spent a lot of my day with kids, and I'll tell you this, I have no idea what they're doing. But the cool thing is when I accept that, I don't have to try to understand it. I sit there like, hey, help me understand your life. It was in position to learn rather than like, oh yes, my antiquated experience is clearly relevant here. Another thing here is an upset kid is not time for a life lesson. Now, normally I would say it's just the dad, but Dan, since you're the only person in here, I'm gonna let you off the hook here. So here's the thing, right? Your kid comes home in tears, they're sobbing, they didn't make the field hockey team. And you know they didn't make the field hockey team, at least in part, because they did not practice. They did not run, they did not go to field hockey camp. And there's that part of your brain that's like, I knew it. I was right. If you take nothing else away from tonight, don't say it. An upset kid is not a time for what I like call capital L life lesson. You know, like if this was like a major TV movie, like, well, son, I think you've learned an important lesson about this. See you at dinner. I'll send the therapist my bill. All right, like it's just not the time because your kid's hard at work. They know. I once epically failed the biology test in high school that my mom I had set it up for so I could go to a New York Yankees game before the bio test. And when I got a 71 on the bio test, my mom came in. I was like, I know, I lied, I screwed up. I'm really sorry. And to my mom's credit, she was like, cool. And then we never had that conversation again. Not a time for a life lesson. Empathize first. Talk about what's making them upset. What can we do to fix the problem either right now or later or really later? Sometimes when a problem is broke, if something goes wrong, we can't do anything about it. If your kid didn't get into Villanova, there's nothing we can do about it. But if your kid's on the wait list for Villanova, then there might be something we can do about it. Understanding timelines matters. And I always say, let's reframe fail as frequent attempts in learning. You tried something, it didn't work, you learned something, let's try it again. Panic. Yes, panic looks different for everybody. We try to get to know our kids with their specific fears and phobias. I'm sorry, and ma'am, your name is?
Rachel.
Rachel. Rachel, would you do me a favor and help me out with this exercise real quick?
Right.
Thank you, Rachel. Rachel, tell me, what's something that's bothering you right now? Just in the universe. Think really hard. There's not a lot to draw from. So,
Ukraine.
Ukraine, an excellent thing to worry about. So tell me this, Rachel, where do you feel that feeling in your body, that worry?
A little bit here and a little bit here.
Excellent, two places, a little bit here, a little bit here, okay? What color is that feeling?
Yellow.
So the flag, right? Yeah, so yellow feeling here and here. If you could touch that feeling, what would it feel like?
Spiky and hard.
Spiky and hard, right? That would make sense. On a scale of 1 to 10, 10's the biggest. How big is that feeling?
6 or 7.
6 or 7, very good. And if the feeling was in a shape, what shape would it take?
Rectangle.
Rectangle, right? So let's give Rachel a big round of applause. Thank you. So remember I said before, feelings are abstract. This is a way to contextualize them, to concretize them. We took this idea, this sort of general idea of worry, and we made it a yellow, rectangular, spiky, hard shape that lived in her upper chest and head. And that was a 6 or a 7 on the scale. What that does is keeping that wizard brain online, because you're forcing it to do something. What color is it? Every time I asked her a question, she went, and she thought about it, and she answered me. That's keeping her online, right? So if you're, it's like the kid's anxious to go to a sleepover. Tell me about your worry. Oh, it's in my chest. Okay, so you're just, what shape is it? What you're doing is you're keeping that wizard brain online, keeping the lizard brain from taking over. And that can really keep that panic from setting in. You did a lovely job with that, Rachel. Thank you. Think about escape. You escape mentally, socially, sometimes physically. You just got to run away. But remember, anxiety lies to us. Anxiety makes us feel like we are actively in danger, and most of the time we're not. So in my line of work, we call this the difference between anxiety and fear. Anxiety is, hey guys, I heard there's a bear somewhere nearby. And they all place some faces up against the window to see if the bear is here. Fear is the bear comes through the door. Now, anxiety keeps us stuck. It's like, what do I do? It's too many what ifs. Fear gives us permission to act. And the cool thing about that is it can free us to do something. Anxiety is cement, right? So panic actually can move us from anxiety to fear because of this. I'm a grown man, but if a clown walked into this room right now, I would be making some behavioral choices, right? I'm not worried about the crowd coming into the room. I asked Roger, please do a sweep. Very, very, very proactive. Here are difficulties. Not that has ever happened here, and we will just skip these slides. Other people make living very difficult. That's a thing. We cannot control other people's reactions or behavior. But one of the things that we know is that human beings are really bad at seeing neutral stimuli. Right? So if we see something neutral, we tend to get it wrong. About 2/3 of the time we get it wrong. So if I'm walking down the hallway and I see Danny, I'm like, hey Danny, Danny does not say hi to me. What do you think my brain says? Exactly, that's literally exactly what my brain is saying. She hates me, she's mad at me. I screwed up and something wrong. Now that is a explanation. It is a possible explanation. What's another one? Dan, what's another explanation for why Dan didn't say hi to me? Didn't hear me. Didn't hear me, right? She's got that hat on, it's covering her ears, right? Sarah, what's another explanation?
She's got a lot.
That's a lot. Would you ever? See, Kevin, what's another explanation for why Danny didn't say hi to me? Actually doesn't like me. She actually doesn't like me. I say fine, there's a non-zero chance that she doesn't like me. I don't know what the chance is, but it's non-zero, right? Mary, what's another reason?
Out of her own mind.
Out of your own mind, right? And we could keep going. This is a great way of practicing the cognitive behavioral theory technique of first thought, second thought. Our brains make quick judgments to keep us alive. But 2/3 of the time we're wrong, right? So I walk by, say I had a day and say, my brain goes to something catastrophic, she hates me. If I cast around for other potential explanations, best case scenario, I realize what the most likely explanation is. Worst case scenario, I give my brain other narratives to focus on, and it blunts the impact of that original one, right? And it's the sort of thing, like, my wife has a lot of anxiety around alarms, like fire alarms, when you hear a siren. When we lived downtown, we'd hear sirens all the time, and she'd be like, something's wrong with the house. That was the first time with the renter. My landlord was an evil human, but that's a story for today. But I was like, what's another explanation? Our corner store got robbed. That's possible. What's another one? Somebody got locked out of their car. What's another one? Blah, 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 keep going, keep going, keep going. There are infinite explanations for human behavior. When we cast about, it blunts the impact of whatever the catastrophic one our brain gives us. Intention versus impact. This is a vital thing. Let's see, you know what? All right. Would you mind helping me out with this? He's like, no, I'm the IT guy. I said, yeah, please, if you don't mind. Sure. All right. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna throw you this water bottle. All right. Excellent catch. You throw it back to me. There you go. Throw it back to you. And I throw it back to me. Oh. The water bottle landed on my foot. Now, you haven't known me very long. Were you trying to break my foot? Yes. Excellent. You got it on tape, right? I'm gonna sue this place for everything it's worth. So the idea here is that we're just playing catch. The ball hits me in the face or in the nose, and it hurts, and I'm allowed to be hurt by that. And you might sit here and be like, my intention was not to do that. I didn't want to hurt you. It doesn't change the fact that I'm hurt, right? So please give him a big round of applause. And it's the sort of thing. This was actually another strategy I came up with here doing work on Hilltop's campus. And because we were outside, we were playing one of my favorite games, shoe golf. And kid A kicked his shoe and it hit kid B in the face. And kid A immediately was, I didn't mean to, I didn't mean to, he can't be sad, I didn't mean to. I was like, dude, he's bleeding. I'm gonna have to call his mom, and she was very really scared of this. So your intention doesn't matter. When you do a behavior, you release it into the universe. You don't have any control of this. I love this talk, it's one of my favorites, but I can't control it. One of you might be wildly offended by this. All you can do is put it out there. But then the idea is that if you connect intention to impact, you can connect impact back to intention. Because even if my foot is broken from the water bottle, I know that's not what he was trying to do. And it can lower my emotional response. This is a really important thing for our kids because they're going to be so stuck in I didn't mean to. That's not really the argument. The argument is what happened when you did.
Can I ask a question
Of
about
course you
that?
can.
So at least I know with my two-week kiddos, both of them get caught in that space with the intent versus impact. And it seems to me to be connected with like the rejection sensitivity piece. They end up retreating a lot of times, and it's really hard for them to come back to it.
Yeah.
What do you recommend for coming back to it and helping them? But yeah, obviously, once they're regulated again,
Right.
but like, what is that conversation look, sound, and feel like?
So that sounds to me, if we're talking about rejection sensitive dysphoria, right? RSD. Oftentimes kids will either go to the extreme of fight and they'll hit first and ask questions second, or flight and literally retreat into themselves, right? So the idea here is we get curious about what they're doing. So we say, you went away. What happened there? Help me understand. So I mean, as you said, I knew everyone was going to be so mad at me. So it's like if I just like hide, sounds like you're trying to protect yourself. Sounds like you're trying to be safe. I can't be mad at a kid for trying to be safe. It may not be the choice I would have them make. I think we need with curiosity. right? If we frame things through that idea of the neuroscience, the limbic system, and sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous systems, basically any intervention can come back to those three parts of the body because we're grounding inside. We understand our body is trying to protect us. Sometimes that means running down Route 23 after you miss a putt in mini golf. Sometimes that means screaming at a teacher because you got a spelling word wrong. Sometimes it means running up to your room and locking the door because you're terrified you're going to get in trouble. Not all these behaviors are good, but no behavior is good or bad. It's expected or unexpected. So we can use that language. It's like, that was an unexpected thing that you ran away. It made me worried. I'm co-regulating. I'm telling them how I feel, and I'm naming things without judgment. So that's a way that we can do that. So I call this talk right out the storm because of the thunderstorm metaphor. So when a thunderstorm happens, we are allowed to be frustrated, disappointed, even scared. But the idea here is that if you see that thunderstorm coming, maybe don't go have a picnic. See the thing and adapt your behavior. Getting angry at the thunderstorm only puts us in danger. So if you go out there like, thunderstorm, I had Phillies tickets, you're increasing your chances of getting hit by lightning. I'd rather you not get hit by lightning. So when I find that parents get in trouble, it's when their kid is having a meltdown, like, I can't have you have a meltdown right now. Well, gosh, you think the thunderstorm cares one iota about that? The universe doesn't care about our plans, right? And feelings are like thunderstorms. We don't have any control over them. They show up. They're scary. They're dysregulating. But the good thing is that they pass eventually. Most of them are shorter than you think. According to the National Weather Service, your average thunderstorm lasts 8 minutes. Now, the one we had last weekend was much more intense than that, but most of them last about 8 minutes. It's not that bad. After the storm is over, when we can be calm and regulated, which is non-judgmental. What happened? What can we learn from this? Right? Anybody watch Ted Lasso? Right? That was a big hand raise. If you don't watch the show, there's a bit of a spoiler. The end of season 2, Coach Lasso was in a fight with someone, and then the person he's in a fight was getting ramped up, and Ted goes, wait, what can I learn from this situation? And I mean, the show is an incredible depiction of mental health in lots of ways, but that stuck with me because it's like kids get mad at you and you get ready to get defensive. Like, wait, what can I learn from this? What's the lesson? Growing up, my dad always told me, you either win or you learn. And I hated that when I was 15. Now that I'm almost 40, I have kids of my own, I'm like, oh, I get it. Still said it too much, but that's. Another way to think about this is try to be the lighthouse. Now, I grew up on the Jersey Shore, and I was a lifeguard. When people are struggling in the water, inevitably their friends want to go save them. When that happens, guess what I have to do? I have to save 2 people. So what I say, the best thing you can do, loved one of the person who was nearly drowning, stay right here by my lifeguard stand and wave the EMTs over. That's your job. I'm going to take my big surfboard and go out and get them. I put the people on the surfboard because when someone is struggling, when someone is drowning, you know what they do, Debbie? They panic, and when they panic, they grab you, and then you both sink. And I know a lot of strong lifeguards who got stuck in that situation, right? Our instinct as the adults who love kids is to leap into the water to save them, and it's a beautiful, wonderful instinct. It is safer to be the lighthouse. Like, hey, I'm right here. You come to me. I'm going to be right here. And I'll tell you this, I worked, when I worked at Grayson, we had a kiddo who was having a really tough day. And he got into a fight with somebody on the playground, and he was in my office, we were processing. He saw the kid over my shoulder through the window, and he tried to get through me. Now I'm a big dude, I'm 6 foot, 215 pounds. And this 10-year-old was trying to get through me. And this thing, in that moment, if I tried to talk him down, if I tried to reason with him, if I jumped into the water with him, we both would have drowned. All he did is stood between him and the door as he tried to get through me. I was like, hey, you're safe. You're safe. I don't care what happens. You're safe. You're safe here with me. I just kept saying that for 20 minutes. But after 20 minutes, he ran out of gas, took a step back, and burst into tears. Right? That was when I intervened. That was the lighthouse. Right? In a rough storm, the best thing you can do is give someone a beacon. It's like, this is where we're headed to. Right? And that's where the thing to do is because we are unbreakable. We are unshakable. We are eternal. as the adults who care about kids. You know, they're gonna say heinous, awful, ridiculous stuff to us. And we're gonna wake up tomorrow morning, we're gonna love them even more. And that's the key. That's how we're the lighthouse. So some skills from parents in here. Practice what we teach, name your feelings, talk about that stuff. Meta communication, talking about talking. Notice most of the time when I ask somebody to volunteer, I ask them, hey, can I borrow you for a second? You know, I give some of that language to soften that blow, right? When I have to have a hard conversation with a kid, I'll say, listen, I gotta have a tough conversation with you right now. I'm probably not gonna like it, you're probably not gonna like it, but it's really important. I'm using my language to frame this. Because of what comes across, it's like, I'm mad at you. Lisa's like, I'm just sitting here, just trying to head against the wall. I really thought I was gonna get away with this without even calling on me. You shouldn't have worn the orange sweater. Remove your ego if you can, hard to do. Bit of proactive work goes a long way, 5-minute mini conversation, check-ins, big one, should. Right? So avoid should if you could. The idea here is should is all the possibility of the word could plus shame. Right? You should know better. You could know better. Could makes us curious. If your kid snuck out to go to a concert and you say you should know better, yeah, they could know better. Something overwhelmed their good logic. Let's talk about that. Most of the time, the explanation, we don't like it, but it will make sense to us. And emotions are normal and non-valid. Remember, we use expected or unexpected or comfortable and uncomfortable, right? Because kids say crying is bad. I'm like, crying's not bad at the funeral. Well, then laughter is great. Laughter's not great at a state dinner, right? It's time and place for every feeling. You know, I took some of my clients to, you ever been to a rage room? Right? I took my clients to a rage room. You know what I'm talking about. He's like, I invented that. And I told the kids, listen, if you ever need to be angry, come to one of these rooms. I mean, there was like, I think it was Avenged Sevenfold, the Pantera, like it was like the music. And the kids got their glasses on, their hot hats on, and they went nuts for 20 minutes. And they're like, we feel great. I was like, this is a place to be angry. You don't want to go there. Not the time to be happy, silly, right? Yeah. So, why do we work so hard at this? So, if you're familiar with Calvin and Hobbes, the story where Calvin breaks Dad's binoculars, just hides all day, Dad finds out. And then you see Dad flips his lid, right? Screaming, yelling, all this stuff. And you look at Calvin in the last panel, he's crying. I have an idea, Dad. Let's pretend I already feel terrible about it. And you don't need to rub it in anymore. Our kids know. They may act like they don't. They may say very loudly that they don't get it, but they get it. When we pile on, we almost always make things worse. So we meet them with compassion and curiosity, and we maintain those relationships, and we ride out that storm together. Because it's never me versus my kid. It is me and my kid versus the problem. And if you walk out of here with that, then you've done our job. So lots of additional resources. We're going to send these out, you know, to both the staff here and all of you guys. Please feel free to share this widely. You know, this is, you know, I want every parent to have this good science, and there's a lot of good strategies in here. Here's how you track me down. I no longer am down the hall. Still a little weird. But you guys are a fabulous audience. Please give yourselves a big round of applause. Thank you to our amazing tech crew for running. See, a big round of applause around here. It's because he's awesome. And I'd love to open it up for some questions, whether those are from online or not. But thank you guys so much for being here with us on a Wednesday evening. And yeah, if you have any questions, I'm here for it.
What, sometimes they say, that sometimes a parent wants to help fix a situation, just in general, but yet some books or articles say, no, you can't fix them, let the child work it out themselves. I mean, I guess you're just saying, let them know you're here.
Yeah. The biggest thing we can do is hold space, right? The language I have to use for this is a third door solution. So when we get stressed out as parents, we tend to go to either dig in or give in. Dig in is, I'm here with you, I'm gonna fix this problem, I'm gonna call that headmaster, and I'm gonna get that grade changed, and then we're gonna name a wing after you. Or give in, you put your hands in the air like, fine, solve it yourself, I don't care. Third door solution is a mix of the two. You say, hey, I don't know how to fix this, but I am here with you, and if all I can do is sit here with you, great. If at some point we go get some Ritas, or at some point we go get a Wawa pretzel, great. If at some point you bare your soul to me and tell me everything that's going on, great, but I'm here. That's a third door solution. One of the things parents often forget, because it's like, I have to fix it, right? One of the things that parents often forget is that doing nothing is doing something. And I don't mean doing nothing like throwing your hands up and leaving. I mean, I'm gonna just sit here with you, with Darlene. I'm just sit here with Darlene until she feels better. And she doesn't have to talk to me, right? I'm just gonna be here. And she's gonna be really uncomfortable at first because I'm sitting right in her personal space right now. But at some point, we're gonna regulate together. Another part of co-regulation is just holding space. Those are wonderful questions. Thank you. Yes.
So this entire room is now wildly literate about storm riding out. The world is not yet widely literate in
No.
this way, and doesn't understand co-regulation so easily. I think I heard you speak in another video about, the symptoms that our kiddos sort of interface with. How do you recommend sharing some of these tools, tricks, techniques, etc., with other adults that interact with your 2E kid or your neurodivergent kid?
Yeah. So one thing you can do is literally send them this PowerPoint.
Yeah,
Right.
for sure.
And in fact, if you go, I'm not sure if someone can go back, but the one, the parent skills one, if you send them that thing, like, hey, this is all you need to know to deal with my kid. Right? If all they do is this, and listen, that's a lot. Because one of the things I practice, and it doesn't really fit into this particular talk, but it's called bottom-up thinking. If we do nothing at the baseline, right? We don't do anything, things are going to be as they are. Every effort we make towards making things better, if you're adding resources, we increase the chances of things getting better, right? So if you send them this, you didn't take it to the top of the ladder, but you took a step. And maybe they read it, and maybe they use meta communication, and they say, hold on a second, this is the sort of thing I usually yell at you about. I don't want to yell at you about this. So tell me, what can I do different? Meta communication, and you're giving the kid a voice. Because I just don't need you to yell at me right now. I know I screwed up. Okay, we can do something with that. So the other thing to do is, that's where the proactive stuff comes in. This is what we're trying right now, right? Another thing is, and this is going to come across a little blunter than I mean it to, but I'm from New Jersey, and this is just how we talk. At the end of the day, it's about you and your kid. So if the rabbi at Hebrew school doesn't get it, or the swim coach at the Y doesn't get it, yeah, that sucks. But all you can do is share the resources and help them to understand your kid. If they don't act on it, that's, to a certain extent, it's out of our hands, right? It is, when you have kids with needs, the natural human inclination is to charge in front of them and clear a path. I think it's much better to walk along with our kids, or even when you're ready, walk 2 steps behind them. Our kids are tough, they'll figure it out. But when you're 2 steps behind them, they know they can turn around and say, huh? And you're like, I'm here, I'm right here, right? And that's how we do stuff like that. We can't get everybody to do it, but when we model this, when we make it overt, we teach people through our example, through our behavior, and everybody gets a little bit better. Yes. I'm not hiding anymore.
No, I'm not.
Yeah.
This might be more of a question for other teachers, and I can go back and talk to the teacher, but like. How do I, if a student, like, I'm trying to lessen the demands on the student so that I don't get the explosive
Yeah.
things. But then eventually then there's no demands on the student at all, and they're not meeting the expectations of my classroom, and I really want to hold them accountable. But every time I try to hold it accountable, it becomes
Right.
a thing, and I'm going through the whole process, and then I have 5 other kids over there that are doing what they need to do.
So one of the things that's always helpful to remember, and this is a story, this is a thing I actually learned here. Is that we always play the long game with our kids. So there, what do you teach?
English.
English. That's a tough class, right? So if you're trying to read Tom Sawyer and they are just not having it today. Be like, hey, listen. This is not your day, right? This is I'm gonna use meta communication. I'm here for you. I want you to learn this. It's important you learn this. But your brain and body don't look ready for this right now. So you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna email lesson plan home. So you've got it. And listen, if you can come back to me between now and the end of the day, we'll do what we can. We're offering them a solution, not from a place of anger, like you better come to me or else. This is the thing. I want you to learn this is important, but right now your brain and body aren't ready. All right, that's why we start this with the brain science stuff. But if that kid is seeing red for whatever reason, and as we know with the Hilltop kids, usually when we see the behaviors, like the thing that happened like 90 minutes ago, right? You know, you got hit with the tennis ball in gym, but then by English, you're ready to fight the universe. It was, I mean, our faculty meetings, it was always like, okay, so this kid had trouble in 8th period. What happened in 5th period? And Mr. Sedgwick would always like, that was me. Still here? What a legend. And then Dave Van Dyke would be like, guys. Just all the cast of characters. Yeah, that's right. But actually, to that thing you just said, it's not about changing it right now. It's about changing it over the long term. If you zoom out on a kid, you know, it's April, graduation right on the corner. Think about that troubled kid. What do they look like in September? I guarantee you they're better. Right? You know, remember, frequency, intensity, and duration, right? If that kid was having 10 meltdowns a week, and now that's down to 7, it's still a lot of meltdowns. Right, and sometimes that's all we can do, right? But I can tell you this, you're making a big impact. And one of the things that we remember, especially by the time a kid gets to school like Hilltop, is they have had dozens, if not hundreds of teachers and adults and coaches who have freaked out at them for that. You know, if we don't have to meet that with like positive support, but if we meet it with neutrality or kindness or compassion, kids expect anger from us. You can hold them accountable. You're like, listen, I want you to learn this. You're not ready to learn it right now. That's fine. When you're ready, I'm here.
Right.
And I think that's you know, I just took a kid off my therapy service because he's not ready for therapy right now. He's blowing me off. He's actively playing Fortnite during our session. I don't listen to him. I'm not going to keep wasting your parents' money. When you're ready, I'll be here. So you're back. I was like, what?
Does that mean you have an opening?
Yeah, I'll take the journey like number 37. Astronomy on ride, you know. Take a number. But yeah, that's the thing. Like, we're playing the long game, right? But you know, it's hard. But like use that science language, right? And then have a place to put them if they can't go. Like, if they can sit counselor's office, if they can go to the gym, run that off, that can be helpful. Thank you. So, how'd I do? Yeah. Because like, listen, all these adults are like have a vested interest in telling me I did a good job, but I feel like you're gonna be the realest person. So now that I put you on the spot, though, I'm like, it is so much harder. But you guys were absolutely wonderful. Thank you so much. Please give yourselves a big round of applause. Right under the wire. Look at that. 7:58. As long as it's not. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.